So I'm going to be replacing, hopefully, just the rubbers on these tie rod ends or track rod ends. That one's dry, and this one's all split and hanging out. To get them off, generally speaking, they've got castellated nuts with split pins in. Usually they're a bugger to get off. They've rusted in. If you can take the split pin out, get it out. If not, just bang on pull as much of the split pin as you can off, put a 19mm socket on, and just spin them off. And there is a reason why you just don't bother trying to get them out on the car. You see, we don't know what this actually feels like. It might be salvageable by just putting a new rubber on. Therefore, in the vise we can drill out the old split pin. But we don't know what it's like. And sort of 9 times out of 10 with jobs like this, you end up replacing the tie rods anyway. So there's no point messing about trying to get that pin out if you're going to scrap the joint, because it comes with a new nut and a pin anyway. So that's it. So that's one of the things you've got to know. The next thing, you've got to take this bracket off on a Defender. There's the socket. And what is the socket? It's a 5/16 Whitworth. For some strange reason, they never change the threads on here. So I don't know why that is. Why they couldn't put a different metric thread in, I don't know. Maybe they were just being cheap. So spin these off, spin the tie rods off, and I'll show you how we get the tie rod ends off without any tools. Taking the tie rod end off. Like I say, we didn't bother taking the split pin out because it's all rusted up. You get your 19mm socket and just spin it off. Right, that's it, get rid of that. To get it off, hammer. No tools required, just give it a bit of a hit there. That expands, it'll expand that taper just a little bit, enough to get it off. Now, I'll go and get the other side off, and then we'll go and have a look on the bench and see what these joints are like. So now we've got this tie rod, or ball joint, track rod end, whatever you want to call it, on the bench, and we can feel it around. It's actually quite good. It's not bad at all. You know, it's not loose, it's not seized, there's no play in it. That's good. So we might be able to get away with putting a rubber on, and now you can see what the problem was. You see, there it goes. Ah yeah, you see it's still got grease in, but look at the rubber. That's not going to get any better. So what we're going to do is salvage this little spring clip, and the rubbers that we're going to use, well, I don't think you can actually buy them for Defenders. Probably I'm wrong, but that's the number there. It's 214649. They're actually off the old series, but they fit exactly the same. So what we're going to do, we're going to turf out that old grease as much as possible, because that's seen its days. Oh, I'll have to go and get some paper towel, just a second. I've cleaned up as much as I can. I don't actually want to put any brake cleaner in there to dry that out, because it is still quite good. I'm going to put a little bit of grease in, force it in, and move it around a bit so it gets around there. You know what I mean? Now, a lot of people are asking me about the grease I use. This stuff. This is April Supreme Grease, wheel bearing grease. Some people confuse it. They think I'm putting actual red grease for rubber grease. It's not the same, because this stuff here was made in Canada, and the stuff you get back home, the red grease, is Castrol, made in the UK. Now, by moving this around, you can see the rust coming out of that. You know what I mean? Look at that. So what we're going to do is keep on cleaning it. Hey, look. Before and after. I'm going to keep on cleaning that till the grease remains red. So once we're happy that that's nice and clean, we're going to put our rubber boot on, our rubber cover. Now these aren't perfect sizes, that's the only downside about this, because they're made for an all series truck, but they do sort of fit in an emergency. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and put this spring clip on, if I can. It's really fiddly. There we go. Now I haven't got the clip for the top. There's supposed to be one goes in this ring here, so I'm going to try use a tie wrap. So what I'm going to do now is try and put that end on, that cover on. There we go. Wait a minute. Let's see if I can get that a bit better. The whole bloody old vice is falling to bits now. Right. So we're going to try and put that spring clip on. I'm going to use a little pricky tool just to try and ease that on. Or force it round. I might be able to force it round with my hands. This is very handy if you had a handy octopus. There we go. That's it. That's on. So what I'm going to try and do, I don't know, let's have an experiment. See if we can get a ring round there. Now the only thing I could think of was a tie wrap, and I've just put the bloody thing down somewhere. Yeah, here we are. I've got these little tiny tie wraps. No, they're not going to do. They're not going to do at all. You know something, I think they might be just alright once they're on the car. You know, it might just push down. Because they are new rubbers and they are upside down. It would be a perfect, because you see, there was different sized tie rods, you know, like different sizes, but originally it came with a little spring clip to go on here. I wonder if a piece of wire would work. Let's see. I've got myself a little piece of light copper wire. Just a bit of light copper wire. I'm just going to put that around because anything's better than nothing. And see if that will hold. I'm not sure. I might have got it a bit short. Well, maybe not. So it just goes to show you when you've got the old boots, your old boot, don't throw the rubber out, don't throw it away. There we go. There. That'll do. All it wants is a little twist of wire on that, and that will live again. The next thing we've got to do is locate our split pin and drill it out. That's easy. And then we'll do the same on the other side. I know this is a bit of a monkey about drilling pins out. I could have put a new joint on. Well, why didn't I? Because I haven't got any. Feel at the back, feel where the dimple is at the opposite side and try and drill through it square. Now, use a drill that's a lot smaller than the original pin. I thought my drill had snapped there. So I got the pin out, I got the old pin out, I drilled it out. If you're not very confident about drilling out the split pin, you can use the old castellated nut as a guide. So you can just drill straight through the hole. So you can put your nut on, like that look. We'll find out where the hole should be. Where is it now? Ah, there it is. I'm looking at the wrong side, that's why. There's the hole. There it is. And you can sort of use that as a guide, you know, to drill out. Now, there is a reason. I didn't put this in the drill press because I didn't want to damage the threads. And talking about threads, these are real awkward threads. Every time you get a different tie rod, it seems to have a different thread. It's not always guaranteed to be the same. And the simple reason is, I've got a sneaking feeling these are Whitworth. I'm not really sure. I was just going to say, just to mention, castellated nuts are really handy, because if you put them on backwards you can use them to clean up the threads and you know. Now I was going to mention a little trick that you could do, because sometimes you'll find they're tied on with Nylocs, and this is probably a best time to explain this. Why do they have castellated nuts on split pins? Because they're damned easy to get off. If there's a bit of grease around the split pin, you can soon take this off, spin this off with a spanner or anything, and you know, knock off the tie rod end. It's really, really simple. Whereas if it's got a Nyloc on it, these have usually been put on with an impact. The simple reason is, as soon as it starts to bite, as soon as the nylon bites on the thread, the whole ball joint will start to turn, and then you're going nowhere. So sometimes you have to put a lot of pressure on the top to get the two to pull together. So I try to avoid these Nylocs wherever I can. Now this is an M12. That's not an M12 thread. That's what I'm trying to say. So I'm a bit stuck. So I'm going to have to use these old nuts. I don't mind. I think they're actually easier to work with. But that's the reason why. Some manufacturers have got a fine thread on here, but they put a Nyloc, and sometimes one of the problems is that you've got a rusty nut on here. It's nylon, you know, and then you're turning it off, you know, it's starting to come off, and a lot of you haven't got power tools like I have, and the damn thing starts spinning on the taper. Wow, what a carry on you have then. So, you know, if you've got a power tool and the hand, so you've got your nut on like this, look, and you're trying to get it off, at least with the power tool you can put a bar on the other side and pull a bar down, put some pressure on here, and then you can spin it off. You're trying to push that taper back in. They're a real nightmare, honestly. I've had lots of troubles with them. And if your tie rod's knackered anyway, just chop the nut off. Because that's why your tie rods always come with new nuts, you see, because there's so many different variants of threads. So just be careful of that. And like I say, don't think, oh well, the split pin's broke, I'll just put a Nyloc on. You've got to get the right size nut for the thread, and it isn't always as obvious as you think. You would thought Land Rover was all metric, but not always. Not always. So just a few little things about that. So that's good enough to go back on now. You know, I'm happy with that. In an ideal world, we could drill and tap a grease nipple in there. Ooh, am I allowed to say that? You can put a grease nipple in the end and pump it up with grease, and then it'll be good for life then, providing you remember to grease it. But, you know, a lot of these things nowadays are all come, you know, pre-filled with grease and good for life. Well, it depends what you're classifying as life. Sometimes life's very short. Right, I'm going to do the other end, and then I'm going to put this on, and then we're going to have a look at the drag link, because that's one of our favourites. Now, on the old series trucks, there was a lot of confusion with these tie rod ends, because on series 3s they changed them somewhat, and it was kind of confusing. So if you've got a series truck, when you take the tie rod off, just make sure if it's a full thread or if it's got no threads on. You've got to match it to the tube. Now it doesn't matter for Defenders so much, but it really was with series, because if it was a threaded tube and you were putting a plain shanked tie rod end in, it wouldn't clamp properly. See, that's the reason why. So you always check if you've got threads, and it can be confusing because when you unscrew it, you will see you'll see threads in the top of the tube, but it's actually grease or rust. So clean it out well and just make sure. Not a lot of them exist anymore, those old parallel types, but it's just something to be just a bit cautious about. So I'm going to fit that, and then we'll have a look and see what we do with this drag link. I was just digging around in the shed looking for a nut, a new nut. A couple of things. I found this tie rod here. Now this tie rod is exactly what I was saying about. This is off the early series 2s, 2As, where it was just a plain shank here, and in the corresponding tube it was machined plain, so that when you tighten up the clamp, the two would tighten together. And that's why if you have you've got to get them right. So this is an early one. So that's good. So at least you've seen that. But really, Defender people, we don't really have to worry about that too much. They made them standard like that, if you see what I mean. That's what they're supposed to be like. Now, this one, it just turned up again, rummaging around. It wasn't any box, so I'm not really sure what it's off. But this is again exactly the same. It's funny how things work out. This is exactly what I was trying to explain. This is a fine thread lock. The thread on here is exactly the same. This is a left-hand thread. You can see I've copper greased it up, thinking I was going to use it again, and I didn't. But again, a Nyloc nut. So I think that's why I never use this one, because they're a bugger to fit. Now, put the thread protector back on there. One thing I wanted to show you while I've still got some battery life, when we tighten these down, we put a washer on here. This one doesn't come in the washer, it must have got robbed. If you observe the hole here, there's the little hole. Look, you can see my colourful skin through there. If you can see there's the hole. Now, when you put the nut on, there is no specific torque for these. But you tighten it down. Let me have a look first and see if I can find the hole. There. So, what we're looking for, if you can see there, to put the pin through. Now, what you do is, if it's like that, and if one of the pieces of the castellation is covering over the hole, don't back it off. Don't unscrew it to get the hole lined up. Tighten it up even more. Where is it now? There. So go around it and tighten it to the next castellation to get the split pin through, because it's most important that these don't come loose. So instead of backing it off, tighten it up. So if you just do it with a spanner, a big key, tighten it up. If the hole doesn't line up, tighten it up just that bit more. Put your pin through, fold it over properly. So you put your pin through like this, fold one side over like that, and one side down like that. In fact, I'll tell you what, I'll show you, because we've done a video on this before, and some people said, I don't do it like that, but believe me, you do. As tempting as it may be, if you can't line up the hole, you think, oh, well, I'll just get a thinner pin and put that through. Well, that's not really right, is it? You don't want to do it like that. You need the correct size pin, which is this one. There you go. Now, observe. The head of the pin locks into the castellation. It doesn't go like that. Some people put them in like this and wrap it round like that. It goes in like that. Alright, let's get this right. So it goes in like that. Then you pull one over the top. Now some people leave this bottom one. I just pull them down. Then with a pair of snippers, pair of sharp snippers, not these ones either, they're bloody useless, these things. Now, nip that off, and again, nip that off. Tap them down, nice and neat, looks proper. Now, one person in the comments said, no, you do them at 45 degrees, and that's it, you just open them up at 45 degrees. No, that's wrong. Because otherwise, when you're working under your car and you've got great big bits of split pin coming out, you're going to gash your clothes and your arms and your raccoon, they're all going to get damaged. So that's what it should look like. And if you ever see original one come out the factory, well, I'm sure Land Rover know what they were doing. Again, don't forget the washer. Now, here's another top tip. Let me just take this off and I'll show you. In fact, I'll show you how to take them off. I've just pushed it back again. It's much easier on the car when everything's stable. To get them off, bend the leg over. Ooh. And rock it, take the leg off. Same with the bottom one. This is really awkward, eh? Take the leg off, bend it like that, as straight as you can get it. Push it through, pair of pliers, pull it out and throw it away so it falls on the floor. If you've got a situation, whereas the cancellation, the hole is above the cancellation, put a washer on and build it up to the height. Very important. The split pin shouldn't go through the top. Let me get another example. See, it's hard. I just make this up as I go along, you know. I don't plan any of this. Lots of guys plan this for days. I don't. I just do it. Right, so what you want, again, I've picked up the wrong pin. All my split pins fell out of the box, so they're all sorted now. So, if you've got a situation like this, you can see, where the pin doesn't go through the cancellation, simply build it up with washers, keep building it up and building it up until the pin goes through like that. Then you'll have no worries at all. And remember, grease it or put some thread guard on there, because you want that to come out. Because if you're at the side of the road, or you broke down, or you've had an accident, or you know there's some mishap, you want to get this off. These are the best ones to get off. They're easy. But if you can undo the pin, salvage the nut. Don't use the pins twice. But in case of a dire emergency, yes, you can. That's why we only snap one side of the leg off, so you can bend it back down again. And we snap the leg off, so we're reducing the amount of metal that we're pulling back through the tube. That's what they taught me as an apprentice, and 40 years on, it works like a charm. Alright, so let's have a look at this drag link. So I've got the drag link off, this thing here. A couple of notes, some interesting notes too. Again, this is split. The car's 1994, and you know, I've got a feeling that these have never been changed. Again, split pin, drill that one out, that's an easy one. Those are the bushes on the shock, on the steering damper should I say. Pretty bad. We'll just put new ones on. But what is interesting is this. This is an Old Man Emu steering damper. Now, we've done about steering dampers before, because a lot of companies fit, look how strong I am, a lot of companies put gas-filled steering dampers on. This isn't. It's a big, heavy-duty steering damper, but not gas-filled. So they do exist. They do exist. So it's worth bearing in mind that the gas-filled dampers are not really a good idea. I've got a shelf full of them. In fact, I'm thinking about just throwing them out. I don't know what the hell I keep them for. So, let's have a look at something I've missed in the other section. I want to just go back on. This is what I wanted to show you. You can see these have got a full thread, and also we mentioned earlier that the early series trucks had these with a, like I say, a parallel shank, and you can see how that's different. So these go into these that's got no thread in it. It'll have no thread down to about here. So this clamp would clamp onto that bit. Oh, what was that? Never mind. So anyway, one thing I forgot to mention, I might as well shove it in now. You see they've got a little split here. That means that can be clamped round the thread to stop them coming unloose. And we're familiar with these little clamps, we've seen these. They're not as good as the very early Defender ones. The early Defender ones were cast, a lot stronger. How do they fit? Like that. You see your bolt should be 90 degrees to the split. Does it matter? I don't know, but that's the way it says it is in the book, so that's where I'm going to do it. I've noticed none of these are. They've just put them on willy-nilly. But I think if you put them on parallel, like so, that you can't nip the gap up. What you want it when you pinch this clamp, you want it to pinch evenly, if you see what I mean. It's very difficult to explain. But anyway, if you put them at 90 degrees to the split, you'll be alright. Don't worry about it, they'll be good. So, yeah, no, that's right. No, I might as well tell you here. This one goes on your drag link off your steering box. You know, Americans call it a pitman arm for some bizarre reason. Anyway, it's a drag link. I'll try and convert them. Anyway, again, the same thing. All the ball joints were nice and tight. And believe me, I reefed on this up and down and backwards and forwards. No play on it whatsoever. But the rubber was split. The rubbers, put this camera up so I'm not bending over, getting older now. The rubber, I don't think you can buy individually. So I'm just going to I'm going to open a kit up and put the rubber on the drag link ball joint, because, you know, filling it up with grease, it's going to be fine. But if the rubber's split, then water's going to get in, cause it to corrode, then you have to replace it. Now the thing is, those ball joints on those arms, tell you what, let me get one out and I'll show you.